No two movies are the same, and no two movies are ever made in the same way. In today's episode, we're talking with Keenan Dailey and Trude Namara, the creative force behind the independent movie Brim.
Dailey served as the film's DP, director, and editor, and Namara wrote and produced. Like many, if not all indie features, everyone wore a lot of hats during the making of Brim. And full disclosure, Kevin Lau, the producer of the Filmmakers podcast, served as the producer on Brim 2.
Our Kevin is a man of many, many talents. Sorry, Kevin. I like to call you our Kevin. We spoke to Dailey and Namara about their creative process and how they juggled not only so many creative tasks, but so many practical tasks. Brim was made on a tiny budget, but it's a very big swing, a multi-generational story that required a large cast to bring it to life. Brim's origin story is very unique, too.
Yeah, it really is. Brim began as a short film, Speak No Evil, but it found an interesting audience in the medical research community. The film took an unusual and fascinating path from short to feature and promises to become a model for Dailey and Namara's future work. In the next hour, you'll hear all the details straight from Namara and Dailey themselves.
Whether you love the process of making movies, or you're an aspiring filmmaker wondering how things get done, or you're just curious about a hard-hitting drama filmed right here in downstate Illinois, you won't want to miss our chat with these.
What does it mean to be the ones who survived? What did our fathers, grandfathers, mothers, and grandmothers have to do? Because they had to survive. What were they surviving? What did it cost them? We must protect our survivors because by no small feat or metaphor, they are more than just our history. They are our collective memory. Those who survived and continue to live created a new life that those who came after could only hear about. I can only hear about my mother's lynching. Your children and their children after will only hear about police brutality. Still, they will carry the scars of those before them. They will be, as we have been, reminded of their place in a world that wants to oppress them by silencing this history. By choosing to silence our history, to lock it up in our minds, we're allowing those who oppress us to sit in their desire to forget our pain as well. Let us never forget, because silence breeds space for lies. I promise you, we are stronger than the lies we are told. So we will no longer play into a game where we are treated as victims. We will be storytellers. We will be advocates. We will be caretakers. We will take up spaces that we've been barred from. Because when we converse, healing each other and validating our minds, they and they alone will be playing their game. When we empathize with one another, they and they alone will be playing their game. When we care for one another, they and they alone will be playing their game. While I still can't remember, I must listen. While I still have my sight, I must see. Let's refill our cups to the brim.
Keenan Dailey and Trude Namara, welcome to the Filmmakers podcast.
Hey,
Hello.
I'm honored to be here.
We're very happy to have you here. And I want to start the way back here. Tell us just briefly, if you could, maybe starting with Keenan, just how did you come to be involved in filmmaking? What's your quick superhero origin story.
Started making YouTube videos when I was 13, 14, fell in love with editing. And then when I got into college, I started doing acting. So I started taking more and more theater classes, even though my major was graphic design. During that time, I started making short films because I'm like, well, if you want to act in films, make some films. So that was the process. So I started making, shorts here and there. And then over time, I think around the third short film, I just really fell in love with the process of filmmaking. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into the idea of filmmaking.
That's always a good route to kind of like make the thing that you want to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting you said editing. I've heard someone say, and maybe and Trudy will obviously we'll jump into your story as well. But I've heard, and I wonder if you can, what your thoughts of this is, because I heard what he said, like what is it? Movies is the director's medium, television is the writer's medium, and then YouTube is the editor's medium. And now you found so many people who have such a strong background in being able to cut movies, which is so vital, who've learned so much through that, and now are able to take that right into making their own stuff.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I think when it comes to the editing practice, being able to think like an editor when you're on set, crucial. So, I love it, especially just as a creative storyteller, period.
Yeah, Trudy, what about you? Let's hear your origin.
I feel like mine could have easily become like a villain. A pivotal moments type thing. So I'm originally from Uganda. I moved here when I was 10 years old. I don't know if you guys have immigrant friends or if you're yourself immigrants. We'd love to learn more about you, actually. But you get here and you get like the 4 options, like doctor, lawyer, accountant. I don't know, like engineer. And I picked I picked doctor because I could do it. And it's crazy because every time everyone asks me how I got into filmmaking, it's almost like my life began in 2021 because I was in medical school and I kind of was just going through the motions because I was doing the thing I was supposed to as an immigrant to make my family happy and everyone feel proud. And I was doing really well. I was top of the class and all that. And I was just well, I feel depressed and I miss sunlight and I just don't think this is how I want to live. I love the philosophy that you live your life how you spend your days. And I was looking at my days and I was I'm in a building 24/7 and then I'm out of it. And then I can't treat people who I really want to treat. Because if they don't have insurance, it's going to get weird. And I just I don't want to become that kind of person. So I was I'm going to leave. I left medical school. And then Keenan's my partner. And I was already writing concurrently throughout the years that I was also trying to study medicine. And I left and I was you know what? I'm already a pretty solid writer. I'm already I already have these awards and little accolades here and there. Why not just pursue this directly? The rest is kind of history from there. I kind of dove headfirst into script writing, dove headfirst into science writing. I was writing books and everything. So then I just felt the freest I'd ever been, and I'm acting and I model. So kind of just felt I was a creative in a creative who blossomed into something. The villain period would have happened if I became a doctor. I would have just been just a resentful type of person who brings you to the office and they're just what's wrong? Tell me. I hate you. Leave. Or whatever. So yeah, that was the pivotal moment. But yeah, I don't know if that made sense.
So kind of the typical screenwriter journey, medical school to screenwriting and filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
That's how most people do it.
We're all doctors on the side, totally.
Well, let's talk about Brim. I mean, that's the reason we're here, the movie that brought us together. So, let's talk about how that project came together. Now, I understand that it was originally a short film before it became a feature film.
When we first got started, it was a short film called See No Evil, right? And so let's pick up from there. It's a short film called See No Evil. Before we made that short film, we were approached by Dr. Paris Atkins Jackson of Columbia University. She studies neuroscience, and she leads a intercollegiate research team. Titled Marvin Gray Matter Family. It's a Marvin Gray Matter family. So this research team, their focus and their highlight is really on how racial trauma has led to an increase in Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. So we were having this conversation. So I was sitting down and talking with Paris, Dr. Atkins Jackson. She prefers to be called AJ, so I'll refer to her as AJ. But I was sitting and talking with AJ, and we were discussing what is a new and more interesting way of research dissemination. How do we get this research out to the general people? How do we get it out to the people that we want to read it? Not walled behind some heavy jargon or inaccessible academic journal. How do we get it to the people? Because they're very proud of their research. They want their research to affect the community. They want their research to also impact organizations on the ground. So we're like, okay. One of the things that we were first talking about was a comic. So we first talked about a comic. I love comics. I'm a big comic fan. But one of the things that we came across, we were like, okay, well, if we're thinking just quick dissemination, maybe a movie might be better. So that way we can get it in, for example, a conference period. So it's like, hey, what if we're going to a conference and we just, boom, all you do is show the film and then you do a panel after, right? So that way we have something that's right there. If you're in a position to where you're presenting with people that may not want to accept the research or read the research or even want to engage with the research, but they still have to come to this panel, let's actually just show the film. And you have like a lot less choice but to engage with the media that as it's presenting itself. So that's what we did. So we wanted to take a horror route. And this is kind of the journey from short film to Brim. We wanted to take a horror route. See No Evil was initially crafted as a horror to reflect the 1994 crime bill and the 3 strikes, you're out, super predator, that era of United States history where we're focused on mass incarceration. So we focused on that area with See No Evil. And then we took that film, making sure I got my timeline right. This is May 2023. And then in November of 2023, we had the finished film and we were presenting it at the Alzheimer's Association Conference in San Antonio. That's when we worked together with AJ to develop a feature. It went really well at the San Antonio conference. People loved it. Other organizations, other research funders loved it. We're like, okay, let's double down and make a feature. So that's kind of how Brim got started.
Interesting.
It was definitely the first sort of feature, fictionalized type film I've ever noticed. Scholarly bibliography in the end credits. So that definitely told me something was up. So that to me, I mean, I'm a writer. I've done a little script writing, but I'm primarily a fiction writer. But that to me suggests a very interesting and challenging adaptation process. How do you start with scientific ideas and then craft a narrative arc?
This process for this was a little bit difficult in the sense of how do I sufficiently translate lots of data and like lots of like really and lots of like reports and published papers into something that is a story. And I think the thing that I boiled down to, based off my training with Johns Hopkins, was kind of just like, how do I marry science and writing? And literally the idea was like, and how do I make a fiction? In my mind, I was like, all the data is people's life points, is life plots. Is like, so the data itself was kind of like, how do we prove, her idea was like, how do I prove that racism is directly related to Alzheimer's? And her idea was like, how do I can measure like the stressful moments in people's life. And she chose to measure the cortisol levels in like people who are incarcerated versus people who are like Black and incarcerated, white incarcerated, and just like older generations who lived through like those periods and those who didn't. So she did that, and that was how she got the data. And with me considering these people's data points as like moments in their lives, I was like, what do I create? And the answer that came to me was a drama. That was the genre that it came to, because it's like, if we're going to be highlighting lots of different stressful points, it's going to be a drama. And if I'm making something that's so heavy, that's involving, for example, like police brutality, lynching, all these very heavy and pivotal moments inside of Black lives, I was like, I need to create something that allows for people to go on a journey across generations, and that's kind of what led me to creating like a period drama exploring racial trauma, like resilience and legacy of like one family. And so that's what this film is. And then eventually the pivotal moment where we switch from following the entirely Black perspective and switching to the like almost entirely white perspective was crucial because I needed some way to explore the removal of Black lives from their own stories. And like the benefits that predominantly white populations have benefited with the removal of Black bodies. And I think that perfectly encapsulated what she was looking for inside of her story. So that's kind of how I got there as far as the writing goes. The process itself was lots of back and forth with the client, of course, but yeah.
It was so interesting. It was extremely interesting because we started talking about the concept, and Trudy came back with a longer format script, and then we all started talking about it, and we loved it because it was just so good. But then
There's so much to cover.
But then it put the ambition of developing the project way up, right? So it changed the scope because the script was so long, but it was so good that we're like, okay, well, we might not have all the budget, but let's shoot for it. Let's shoot for it. Let's do our best because the story is something that is just important to be told, and this is the situation.
For all intents and purposes, for filmmaking, we had the equivalent of $3 to make this film. We had 62,000 total over the course of like 2.5 years. $5. If you really
spread it out.
Absolutely none of that money got back to us. It all went to crew, or all went to like other things. And so, and something that's really fascinating about this project is like we're doing really well on like the film festival circuit, but we filmed like 50% of what we wanted to film.
Oh yeah.
I'm so glad the story is this moving, and the work that Keenan. By the way, the Red Leaves. A lot of like Keenan's directing and the choices that he made it so clear. Such an impactful story. So it was just kind of like a mix of like sweat equity and like really scrappy kids coming together to make this.
Well, that's actually what I want to dive in more. And I do want to talk about, Trudy, you mentioned scope. And I do want to talk about that in a moment because like there is scope here because there is it's a period piece in multiple periods. But I want to table that because you brought up, I'm a bit of a process nerd. So I want to talk about the actual process of making it. So you said, budget of, $63,000. How did things begin? Like, were the people you were partnering with, like, the doctors, AJ, anybody else, was there shared financial responsibility? Were they able to help you get, because you got to get those first dollars is basically, for indie film, you got to get those first dollars, you got to get people filming, you got to get the thing. Once the thing starts rolling and you're making it, I have found from experience and from people I know, it's kind of easier to get that money because then it's like, okay, you just got to help us pay for post, or you just have to help us pay to get us across this line, So what was it, like you said, you had the short, you had very interesting partners. What helped you make from a practical sense? Then you had Trudy, you had your script. What helped you in the practical sense of like taking all those pieces and then making the leap, in that process sense to a feature film?
As far as when it just comes to the story itself, it was a lot of project management, literally, because we're dealing with lots of people who are STEM. So and trying to make STEM people do creative things is like making a robot like swim and you haven't like waterproofed it. So like there's just a lot of short-circuiting moments and freak out moments in the whole entire process while you're making something creative. And so the initial moment when she was like, we want to make a short film, and she was like, I want it from the white perspective, it came to me and I was like, well, we need to have many QA QC moments throughout this entire process. So I made the outline first, and then she had lots of comments about it, and then we made the treatment, and then she had lots of comments about that. And I was like, this is the safest way that we can create something that will make you the happiest. For example, like like I mentioned, we initially wanted to do a horror movie. When I wrote it, she was like, this is too scary. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she was like, AJ's absolutely a lovely person. And she was like, well, you made a horror, but I want a romance. And I'm like, I'm gonna I'm gonna change all of that. We have new characters. I basically rewrote the treatment like 3 or 4 times, but like those QA/QC moments were so crucial because once we got to making the first draft, it was smooth sailing from there. But I will say for Brim, I had 2 months to write and do all that QA/QC process with her and then create it. So that's how it was for me with the just the story itself process. But Keenan can speak to the production overall.
When we were in that development phase, when we were trying to figure out like, okay, well, what is the story for the actual short film? What is the story for Brim? The thing that, we were trying to avoid was making sure that it can't be reduced by other academics. So we wouldn't want somebody to see it and go like, okay, well, that's hyper fictionalized. That's not something that really happens. Right. So that was the line, right? That was the line. So every time we were doing this treatment process, we were like, okay, is this something that can be taken out of context and hyperfictionalized and reduced to the point that we hit those research funders and they're like, yeah, okay, we don't care about Black people with cognitive decline. And it's like, this is real life. This is actually stuff that's happening. So we had to toe that line between like dramatic and the horror elements of it to bring it down to make it palatable enough. So it was really a sweet spot. But going back, it was really the short film. It was amount of money with Marvin Gray Matter Family, right? And then we were able to execute the short film. And then once we took it to the Alzheimer's Association conference, that's when it expanded.
I see.
Right. That's when it expanded. That's when it was like, okay, we're talking with other institutions. We're talking with research funders. People are able to see it. They're like, oh, this is super exciting. We see what you're trying to do. It was so funny when we got to the Alzheimer's Association conference. This is the equity conference, by the way, in San Antonio, 2023. When we got there, everybody was like, I hope it's not a documentary. Like, oh, okay. They're like, I'm so tired of documentaries. Yours isn't a documentary. It's not. But yeah, it was really kind of galvanizing when it came to the academics. It was really the academics that kind of huddled around it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, to that point, that's a great addition, Tree, is that Visage, our company, is developing an initiative to support that because we know and saw how heavy the need was to where these different like heads of departments at university were coming up to us saying like, we're ready to do something like this. We want to do something like this immediately. Right. So that's the position we're in. We're trying to make sure that, we document the process of Brim and we're able to actually report and have conversations with both filmmakers, creatives, as well as academics. So that way we're able to bridge more into representing research in this way in this broader dissemination.
That is such a fascinating niche. And I'm so glad you guys were able to find the happy medium with your funders and your partners, but I would love to see that straight up horror version.
Yeah.
I know, us too. It was I loved it. It was insane.
It was cold.
It was
cold.
Get Out and Lovecraft. So it was
nice.
just like it was kind of like
perfect.
Super.
We had so much in that one. Yeah, that's the baby. Trudy showed me that, and I read it. I was like, oh my gosh! Like it was one of those scripts that you start reading the first 5 pages, and then you're at page 80, and you're like, what happened? I'm already done.
But also, like this was just really useful for me as a writer, and I would love to hear more about you, Keir, and like Michael, if you're writers as well. Every time you create something for a client or even for yourself, you learn a lot more about who you are and how you perceive yourself within your writing. I know personally, like when I'm writing for clients, meaning like making stuff for another person. I feel like I have much more access to my emotional range than when I'm writing my own stuff. And I wonder if that's something that you guys relate to, or if you've gone on your journey with that.
I mean, I'll answer it briefly. Mike and I talk about ourselves over the 70 odd episodes of this podcast. We've probably talked about ourselves enough that we want to keep the focus on you guys. But very briefly, I also do a lot of collaboration. I write novels with a writing partner under a pen name. I write kids books with James Patterson. I also do ghostwriting. I'm very familiar with like kind of client work. And what's interesting is that at the moment I'm trying for the first time in years to write just a personal novel with just me, and there's no contract, and I'm kind of struggling a little bit because I'm very used to as a former journalist as well, like I love an assignment, and I'm really good with an assignment if somebody gives me parameters. But I think most creatives over time learn that the more limitations we have, the more we flourish. And the hardest thing in the world is the blank page, and somebody gives you unlimited funding and unlimited creativity. You can do anything you want. That's actually the most paralyzing thing for most of us. So it's a matter of like setting our own limitations so that we can actually then create safely within those narrow walls. But that's me. Mike is a comic artist and a filmmaker and a novelist as well. He does all sorts of stuff.
I definitely learn every time I do something. I'm mixed on parameters, like it's tough for me, I enjoy, I've always been more about creating my own thing than, working within a structure, although it is good to have a budget. I mean, that is one thing that is good, because I've always marveled, for example, like, I've worked on films that are no more than like a million-ish, a television show that had a few million, but like, I've always marveled at like when you have 10 million or you have 50 million, like where do you put that money? Obviously a lot of that money just goes to like, you have more time and you have more takes and you have more days, and that is so incredibly vital. But like, where do you put the action sequence? Like, where do you put the effects? Like, where do you decide to drop that stuff in? And I've always been fascinated, like when you don't have the choice, you just don't put it in. But when you do, it's like, how do you deploy that budget? And I've always been kind of fascinated by filmmakers. And I listen to a lot of, like, for example, like Christopher McQuarrie, who does the Mission Impossible movies with Tom Cruise. And it's like, they decide the stunts and the spectacle first to a very large degree. And then they kind of like build around that, which I think is kind of fascinating, but also terrifying. Because like, what if you can't get there? What if you have the sequence?
There's no connection.
Right.
Why just somebody's jumping off a building while like doing something crazy.
And they film it. They'll film the whole thing, and then they're like, okay, how do we stitch this? I mean, it's not only written, but it's filmed, and they're kind of like, Rebecca.
I mean, what if you don't care about the person jumping off the building or the reason they're jumping off the building? Like, as the writer, like, you've got, as Mike says, you got to get there.
Yeah.
You gotta get there. You gotta get there, and they're making it up. I was gonna say Rebecca Ferguson, who's in 2 of the movies and actually asked to leave kindly, was like, I just couldn't work that way because it takes too long, and you never know where you're going or when you're going to be needed on which days, because they're just writing as they go, and they're like, we need you tomorrow, or they don't need you tomorrow, and I find that process, the bigger it gets, pretty fascinating. But anyway, that's
cool.
We're here for you guys. And I wanted to ask that we table that thing about scope. And speaking about how you deploy the resources you have, this is a multi, not epic, but decades and different time periods and eras that you're covering. And Keir and I did want to ask some specific questions about the era, specifically when we get to the 90s and Clinton. But like, was there any sort of intimidation that you had with being like, okay, we're going to make this a period piece, and it's going to span, I believe it starts 40s, 50s, 90s,
80 plus years.
Yeah, you cover a lot of ground. Were you ever intimidated to say, because that's a lot, that's difficult,
You're correct.
And you did it great, but like, was there a time like where you're like, oh boy?
Keenan first.
I feel like Keenan's answer is maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Reading that first draft that Trudy got of Brim, so the entire project after we did See No Evil, and we knew we were kind of stitched together and pushed to try these different eras. It was like, man, it was like, this is incredible. Ooh, this is incredible. Okay, so I'm not sure how to approach this. It was incredibly scary. What is it? I had 66% more shots than I wanted to get. Like the shot list was enormous. So there was so much more. I'm like, this was supposed to be a much longer movie, but from directing and DP and editing, just going in it all angles, it really came together in a way that I'm like, ooh, okay, that worked. All right, let's keep going. Like happy accidents, happy surprises, aid coming in randomly, things connecting and working randomly at times. Really just kind of running and having the creative community that we brought along support us and stitch together with us and add more to the pile as we continue to make it. So it was great.
Keenan was kind of a lot on this. He was a lot of roles on this one. He had a lot of hats. And speaking of lots of hats, like I was also production design. And so when you're asking like, what was this like trying to capture all of these like periods? We were very lucky because you all are familiar with Champaign County, right? It's like it has oldish parts. So we got very, very lucky in that regard. And then for specifically, it has a really cool 80s vibe. Kind of like if you've ever been to Denver, Colorado, kind of like a similar vibe of like, it just looks like it's still the 80s. And so there were lots, and we had Champaign County has like a really nice film community that was very willing to offer spaces constantly. And well, for the short film, the one that's a completely white perspective, that's kind of at the end of the film. That one is a roller rink in Savoy, Illinois, which is right next to Champaign. That looks they never changed it at all, and they updated some light fixtures for like code, but it's basically effectively just a 1990s rink, and we got lucky enough that they were willing to let us have space in there. For the 1940s and 50s, that was really trickiest, and we worked hard with Kevin to figure out how to get a really solid production designer who I was like second production designer. We had like a first one. His name was Brandon Sanchez, who did an outstanding job sourcing lots of background objects that looked like old timey, had like the different types of like textures that we needed for that time period. It also is owed to the lens choice that we picked that added to the effect of it. We used the Russians. Keenan, you can touch on that and like what that added to the feel of the periods and the moments we're trying to capture. Yeah.
We used the the Soviet lens set that's based on the Helios 44. Is used in Batman and Dune. So it gives that like a very vintage look where I really like the character of that lens like a lot, but it also helped us kind of sit in a different world to where everything's not super clean and crisp when it comes to the image quality. But yeah, no, a huge shout out to the Champaign film community, the Champaign creative community. That's where, I started filmmaking. So that's where I started doing all of the stuff. That's where, I started connecting with Shattered Glass. That's where I started connecting with, The Line Film Co. and Flyover Studios, right? That's where I connected with Kevin Lau, right? Who's the producer on the project. So, I'm just grateful. Like there were so many things that could have went wrong to where this just wouldn't have worked at all and didn't.
I hope that answered it. I was trying to like cover all the period components, but yeah.
No, that was great. And yes, all those people I'm friends with, The Line, Shatterglass, they're wonderful, wonderful people. So I'm glad that they were able to contribute and make this a positive
literally
experience.
Could not have made it without them. This was just the most like, we have faith in you, we believe in you as filmmakers and you as a writer, and we just want to help you grow. And that's something that you don't get a lot of. You don't get a lot of mentorship in like, for example, that's common or easily accessible or not authentic. And this one was very just like, we don't have to know you intimately. We just know what you've done, and we kind of like are down for whatever you feel that you are connected to. And yeah, it's awesome.
It definitely takes a community to make a multi-generational, century spanning, period piece with different historical periods. It also takes a very large cast. I was very curious because you had some really amazing performances but a very large cast, and also the challenge of portraying people at the different stages of their lives. Can you talk a little bit about your casting process, how you cast, where some of your key talent came from? And I know we still have some more process questions too, because of course we want to dig into that, but talk about casting a little bit.
Keenan and I used Backstage for Brim, but then we used Backstage also, I think, for See No Evil first. But it was all Champaign County actors or actresses for the See No Evil film. Matthew Green is an outstanding. He's a playwright and a director, and he was the main lead in that short film. He did an outstanding job, and all the other actresses in that were outstanding and local, which just speaks to Illinois' film talent, truthfully. And then for Brim, we also used Backstage, and we found people from Dyron Jones is from Atlanta, Tisa Harriet's from I want to say like southern Massachusetts, and then Derica is from New York. So it was just like we got very lucky because they were just outstanding actors and they came together. We brought them and we had them at Airbnb. We had them stay together for chemistry building because like because like you mentioned, for example, Michael, like having more money means you have more time, and we didn't have that time because we had $3, and so it was kind of like, are y'all cool staying together for like a week, just like getting to know each other. And Keenan and I would come over, and I'm like semi-trained in intimacy as well, and so we just kind of go through. We kind of would do like little exercises with them, and go over lines and all of that. And it felt like we had enough time to really build a chemistry, which I feel that the lead actors were really solid with. I don't know. That's the summary I have. Keenan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I can hop in. When it came to casting process, just to go back a little bit, there's this group in Champaign, Illinois called the Champaign Movie Makers. So there's Champaign Movie Makers and there's also Champaign Casting Call. I really wanted it to be a priority to go to Champaign first. So Champaign locals first, Backstage second. So that was my priority. That's when we found, Matthew Green and Mindy Smith. Phenomenal performers. They're in See No Evil, or the See No Evil section of Brim. And then from Backstage, that's when we got Letisa, Derica, and Dyron. Generally, we had a lot of cast from Champaign, Chicago, and Indianapolis. So that's where the majority of the cast came. It was really making sure that we got the best actors and actresses possible, where we could then work with them to really communicate our vision. I'm not a fan, from a directorial standpoint, I'm not a fan of just like hop on and then like, we're just gonna shoot the scene and like be more angry. That's not how I work. I like to one, connect with the actors and actresses. I like to talk about like the character motivations. I like to really get involved and say like, okay, well, what do you think that the character's feeling? Does this feel real to you? Is this something that you feel as though you can embody comfortably and safely, right? From an emotional standpoint on set, making sure we're all safe, but simultaneously really diving into the life of these characters. And that was priority number one when it came to like the casting choices, right? In terms of flexibility and who's able to collaborate in that way.
Given the themes of the movie, I can imagine that navigating people's emotions safely would be no small thing. And then again, you're scaled up because you've got so many actors. I'm presuming this is the largest number of actors you've ever directed.
Yes.
Was there a challenge in just kind of keeping like story straight actors' emotions straight. Like, I mean, I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I would say, huge shout out to Trudy because she worked as script supervisor on this to kind of keep me in line. It was a huge amount of cast. And for sure to answer that very first question, it is the biggest cast that I've worked with by far. But the thing about me going into it, I always was on the point of emotional safety first, mental and emotional safety first. I don't want to produce a film that's 20% better and we all hate each other at the end. No, that doesn't make sense. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand the stories of other directors who kind of bully on set to get this perfect craft. No. What is it? Like, the thing that was important to me is making sure that when we come together, we're having fun. We're making a movie. We're here to work. We know what we have to do. We know the budget. We know the script. We have everything that we need equipment wise. We're ready to go. But we're all having fun. We're all able to rest. We're all getting out of here on time. We're not going. We're not going over. Right. We're all getting out of here on time. We're making this something that we can really enjoy. And I'm grateful to say that is what it became. Everything came together. The crew came together. The cast came together. Everybody was collective. There was no separation of crew and cast. There was no like little petty dramas or nothing like that. Everybody was able to come together because this thing was inherently heavy and it did require that kind of touch of, I guess, overwhelming empathy first.
That's something I'm curious about. And Trudy, you probably would be able to speak to this, being the script supervisor as well. What would you say you both learned from this? Because one of the challenges of making indie movies is that it requires, and the scope, again, going to the idea of scope, but just the scope of a feature film, period, versus even a short, because you have to keep a lot in your mind mentally, of stitching this thing together. There's no worse saying when you're making a film in post, when you're looking for something and you say, oh, we don't have it. We don't have that shot. We don't have that. We don't have this thing, because, bigger budget movies, you say, okay, well, we're going to add it to the list of reshoots. We're going to do some reshoots. We're going to do some patches, and we're going to, know we got to get, we're going to go. But indies, once the cast is gone, they're gone. Like, that's it. They're not coming back. The locations may not be available. So, like, what do you guys think that you learned in the sense of like managing that's the scope of making a feature film?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I will immediately take that and immediately take responsibility for it as well. I'd written a feature film that got produced. I'd written a short film that also got produced. It was the first feature film that I've had to make that was like kind of like so much information, but the client wanted all that information too. So it was kind of like, there kind of just has to be this many characters and stuff like that. But something that I learned was like, I have to get better at putting my foot down, and also putting my foot down to my muses as well, because the muses would be like, oh my God, what if this happens? What if this happens? And I'm trying to make it still like a creative and fun process. But at the same time, trying to capture what the client was doing and what the client wanted. And so I learned, saying no to my muses and saying no to the client was a big step too. And when it came to like producing it itself, I learned also, kind of going back to like the emotional safety thing that we did on set. Keenan and I run a set very empathetically. We are very big communicators of like, if you need to dissociate, that's completely fine. You are absolutely not obligated to sit here and try to talk to us and socialize. If you want to socialize, you're welcome to. If you need me to help you get through like a breathing exercise to get you to calm down, that is something I am more than willing to do. Or if you need like any sort of, because, and just to add a little anecdote related to that, when we were shooting Brim, there is a lynching scene, and the priest got on set. He's an amazing actor, but like the second he saw the production design, right, like the body, the fake body, and all of that, he froze and he completely forgot all his lines, and it's just like, no, I understand what we're doing here. Like, I want everyone on set to understand that this is a time period. This is a period piece. So we're going to be tackling a lot of things that happened in the past. However, we are not going to encourage any sort of like negative energy sent to someone or anyone in this space because of their race. Like, this is not what we're trying to create. We're trying to move forward and create like spaces of convening and honest communication. And so therefore, there is no way that like I would tolerate, or Keenan and I would tolerate, any sort of like deriding or energy changes towards someone. And so I learned that keeping that system growing when we produce is really valuable to make everyone feel safe no matter what we're creating. And when it comes to me being script supervisor and trying to manage whether we've missed something or not, at the end of the day, I was like, since this is an indie, I need to make sure we just get through the main emotional beats. Because at the end of the day, when you walk away from a film, it's like, did it make you feel something? That is usually what sways whether or not you will remember it, or if it makes you think. And so when I was script supervising, I was like, okay, some scenes are getting skipped, but what beat do we need to get? So that way we can keep this pushing.
And one of the things I want to do in the future, especially when it comes to indie movies, especially when it comes to movies that have like a research basis, is getting a film advisory board together. That's something that in the future, I'm like, want it, need it, gotta have it. Like, I was reaching out. What is it? I was reaching out to different filmmakers who had been through the process like many more times than I have, right? Who are further along, producers who are much further along. And I wish I had done that earlier before we had even hit pre-production, as opposed to like ongoing, right? So I wish I had had that in place, whether it's, just that guidance to be able to say, hey, I don't know how I should approach this. This is kind of complex. I'm not really sure what's going on. Just for the sake of, as my own experience will grow, it will still be something that we'll be tackling deeper and deeper things. We might want to push craft further and further. I'm not going to be able to pay attention to stuff. I'm just not. Like, I'm just one person, I'm just one creative. So making sure that not just on a team level, but on that advisory level. I think that's one of the most crucial things that I want to do. I think another thing, of course, related to what Trude was saying in terms of maintaining an empathy first set, is just necessary. And I want to continue to encourage that with everybody that I work with, to where they leave the set and they remember, they're like, hey, that was great. we weren't getting screamed at or nothing. We were actually just having a good time. We were communicating. I was respected for my work as being a part of the crew. What? That's crazy. Those are the things that I want to continue, especially seeing how much of a positive impact it had and how easy it is to execute. It's like, it takes a lot of emotional effort, but in terms of execution, it's just maintaining that, making sure that that's what happens. So
what plans do you guys have for your production company?
We're developing an initiative that focuses on taking these different research projects, as well as researchers and organizations that we've connected with, pairing them with funds, so that way our team can come in and create a narrative expression of that research. That is the goal, right? Take them through the journey of narrative expression, whether that be from an initial short film version, similar to what we did with See No Evil to Brim, or an entire feature film, right? Some researchers, some organizations might not be ready to take the full journey, but we would love to come in and say like, hey, we saw like this research paper, this research paper, this research paper. Let's take one of them. Let's do a 10-minute short. And that way we can have this conversation that you're already kind of primed for, right? So that is where we're going on one front. And on the other front, we have some projects that are already in development in more of a fuller narrative, fuller creative, fuller horror space. So we have a couple horrors that we're working on, and I'll pass to Trude.
So we will get to see that horror film.
Yeah, you'll see one of mine. It's more of a thriller, truthfully, this one that I'm making right now. Obviously, and we haven't mentioned this a lot, but Kevin Lau, who y'all are intimately familiar with, is
don't know him.
Yes, is a remarkable producer, and so he is kind of like and also a big part of this bar production studio as well. And he has a short film that he's trying to create that's like more of like a dark comedy, and in particular for me right now, something that's upcoming is a short film that I had called Blink, which is kind of like a Groundhog Day of being in a toxic relationship. I think a lot of the topics that like I tend to lean towards are I write horror and comedy; those are my favorite. But for this particular one, I was like thinking, what can I make with $3,000? something that you just have to shoot over and over again. It's just the number of takes, literally, like in one moment. I shot it within a weekend. It's basically that's being wrapped up right now. It's already a feature at the Lake County Film Festival. And the goal for that short film is to get it optioned as a feature film, so that way we can produce it and make it a little bit bigger. Hoping to get some getting some funds, kind of, well, fingers crossed, from something related to like the Netflix, like Young Creator Fund and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see. And as far as what the goal of the production studio overall, absolutely, we are eager to work with more and more scientists, but also more and more people who are just in any sort of field that they would like to create, to become more creative. I work in sustainability. I work in building sustainability. I help edit laws, and I help create little programs for a bunch of stuff. But like organizations that are involved in different industries like sustainability would be happy to create films for them as well, and just kind of show everyone that science is art, and it kind of already is the baseline for lots of your favorite films. It's just something that people don't think about often. So yeah, that's kind of what
I think
that sounds like a great corporate slogan. Science is art.
Yes.
I mean, it is. It is.
It really is.
You know, I think to add to that, Trudy and Kevin being both additional executive producers of Visage, right? They're both intimately involved in the leading and steering Visage. I think one of the things that is driving this is making sure that the interdisciplinary marriage of research and art is something that is maintained, right? It's not something that, okay, we did Brim and now we're just going to go do like random horror movies and then random action movies, and then we're going to do whatever we want and just make money. Well, I feel as though in film and in creative storytelling, there's not just fiction and expression of like characters. There's also theory. There's also theory of the world. There's theory of the future, right? There's theory on the things that we can't even explain in fringe sciences, right? There's theory of social sciences and the way in which we interact that we can't quite describe yet, right? There's theory when we are crafting these narratives, when we are crafting these stories. And that's something that I want intimately to make sure is married to research and STEM. I want it to be seen as such because it is that level of rigorous process. It's not something that is disconnected at all. So that's kind of the driving force behind being able to do the research-oriented narrative works as well as just purely narrative works.
Looking at Brim, and it's has a unconventional origin, which is really fascinating. I really love where you guys are going with Visage and going with this movie, especially involved with our good friend producer Kevin. So very, very cool. I know that Brim is making a bit of a festival circuit now. At least that's so far what Kevin has told us. But beyond that, do you know how and where people will be able to see it more readily? Is that still in the works?
That is still in the works. We do have a couple directions, though. Like I'm happy to say that we do actually have a couple directions, but it is still in the works in terms of where it's going to land.
And where's the best way for our listeners to follow along with the development of Brim, so they'll be notified when they can watch it, whether streaming or theatrically?
There is the visage.com/Brim page.
We see, and we can put that in our show notes for sure.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you. There is also,
and Kevin, this is your cue to flash it on the screen.
He knows that. I was just trying to tee it up.
Yeah, no, you can follow us on our Instagram. That's Visage ENT. You can follow us on Facebook at Visage Entertainment. You can also follow us on YouTube at Visage Entertainment, and that's where we'll be posting updates.
And soon we will have our newsletter working, and you can find us there and you can follow us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast to talk about Brim. It was such what a fascinating watch, but also just to hear the process of how it came about. I don't think I've ever heard of a movie journey quite like this. You're opening up a whole new thing. I wish you all success in your future endeavors with this, and we'll definitely be following along from afar.
Oh, Keenan, do you want to go? Do you have the list of because if you guys are in certain towns that the film festivals are in?
Oh, the film festivals? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Let me pull that up. I actually do have that.
If fellow listeners are eager to see it now.
So we're going to be at Blackbriar's Weekend Film Festival. That's going to be July 31st. Then we're actually doing a screening with the organization Alternate Roots. That's going to be August 7th.
In Asheville.
That's going to be Asheville, North Carolina. Blackbriar's
Nice.
Weekend is in Atlanta, Georgia. So we have Black August Film Festival. That's going to be in Pasadena. That's August 16th through 17th for the festival dates itself. We're going to be at the Urban Film Festival in Miami. That's going to be August 29th to the 31st. And then we're going to be at Lake County Film Festival September 5th. So that is our date. We're going to be at September 5th in Lake County, Illinois. We also got a new one just
we got a new one yesterday.
Literally yesterday. I didn't even include it. Let me see if I can find it.
We applied to 13 and we got into 7. So it's like,
that's seems like a pretty good return to me.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
And they're like the Oscar
full dance card.
Ones. So I'm like,
I know. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's where we're at, but it felt good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're moving. We've been running around, so we're on the move for sure.
Good. Yes. Support it. You got to do it. You got to do that roadshow mentality. Got to put it out there. So yes, very, very excited for you guys. Congrats. We'll be happy to share this and do what we can. I'm wishing you, like Keir said, nothing but the best. And we hope Brim gets in front of many, 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 many eyes, and they see all the benefits and positives that we saw as well.
It's always nice to talk to fellow creatives and learn their processes. Like you said at the top of the show, Keir, no two are ever the same.
And while we dearly love talking to filmmakers like Namara and Dailey, we're going to be pumping the brakes on these interview episodes as we get ready for season 2 of the Filmographers podcast. Work is already well underway. We're reading books, watching movies, and getting everything aligned to start recording new episodes.
And if you want to get a head start on season 2, you're going to want to join our Patreon. We're going to be putting a lot of exclusive bonus episodes there, and you don't want to miss any of them. You can find us at patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast. That's patreon.com/the Filmographers podcast.
You can join our community for absolutely free, and I cannot stress that enough, free. That way you'll never miss a single new episode, and you'll have complete access to everything in the Filmographers archives.
And if you'd be so kind, please remember to take a few seconds to support us wherever you're listening by leaving us a rating or review.
Thanks, as always, to Kevin Lau, our multi-hyphenate producer, Gompson, who composed and played our theme music, and Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo and our merch.
We'll be back soon with a very special installment of the Filmographers Go to the Movies. We're indeed going to the cinema to see a movie, but it's not a new release.
Did someone finally find the long-lost cut of The Magnificent Ambersons?
I can neither confirm nor deny, so I guess everyone will just have to tune in.